G'day and welcome back to Rusty Inspirations. Today I'm going to do a cheap and easy modification to this Scott's spreader so that we no longer have to bunny hop it all over the lawn to get the product out the bottom. Now before we get started, I just wanted to go over why I'd even bother to modify such a cheap spreader. Now I've got a few reasons. The first one being the size. I like the size of it. It's ideal for my yard and most people's yards at that probably. You know, it's a lot easier to store. I cannot see the point in spending hundreds of dollars on a massive spreader that I cannot use to its full potential. So that's one of the main reasons. The other reason is most people have already got one. Obviously they're cheap, and other than the fact that you have to bunny hop them all over the yard, everything else about it's great, I reckon. So once that issue's ironed out, it's actually not a bad little spreader. Finally, the modification is very cheap and easy. Probably tops another $20 for materials. While we're on the subject, let's have a look at some of the tools and materials that we'll need to do this job. Another thing I've got to quickly add is this is not my spreader. This is actually Dan the man's from the Green Gold Life. I had the wonderful opportunity to hang out with him over the weekend, and I convinced him to let me take his spreader home and modify it. Now firstly, I've got my templates. Secondly, we've got some silicone, a knife to cut open your silicone, a texter to mark the templates, some whiz snips, some tin snips. Some good quality ones seem to work better. Cut through this quite nicely, and a bit of super glue. Also, you might want a shifter and a screwdriver just to check your nuts and bolts before you get into it, as you will not be able to access them afterwards. This one was actually missing, so we'll poke that back in shortly. Now, materials. Now, I originally cut this out of an old 1,000 litre IBC. So I've got a little bit of that left, so I'm going to use that today. But Dan suggested to use an old 20 litre drum, which I thought was an absolute ripper of an idea. So yeah, I'm not going to use that today because I've already got some plastic cut up, but alternatively, I reckon that'll work just fine. Now, as I said, you're going to want to check these, as you will not be able to get to the bottom ones once it's all glued in. This had a missing bolt to start with, so I found something in the old bolt drawer and gonna fix him up, as we will not be able to do it at a later date. Now once we're satisfied that everything's tightened up nice and firm, we can then use our templates to mark and cut out our pieces. Alright, so as I said, we'll need 2 of these and 2 of these. Now I have considered getting these drawn up if people are interested, so that they can be, just go to files, print them off, and then you've got the template to do your own. But I'm not going to do it if no one's interested, so let me know what you'll think. So we've got them all marked out. Now it's time to cut them. I think these tin snips seem to work the best. You want to go to the inside of the line as well. Now we've got all our 4 pieces. Time to start gluing them in. All right, now before we glue it in, just make sure it's all clean If it's a new one, it's probably not going to matter. I have previously given this a wipe out with a bit of metho on a rag. From here, I'm going to do a little dry run. You can see the little cut on the bottom lets it fit around this little piece here. It's a little bit bigger than it needs to, but the silicone fills that in quite easily. They might need some trimming just to get them to fit perfectly. I guess they're all probably a little bit different. I have found you want them to sit in there fairly naturally, so if you have to bend them and make them straight and work, but you just want them to sit right from the start. You don't want to sort of have pressure on them to hold them where they need to be, if that makes sense. And we've got this piece that goes in here, and then this piece that goes up the front. I find that the front one just needs to be manipulated a little bit to make it follow this curve around the front. Probably got a little bit carried away with that. You see what I mean? But all in all, that's not fitting too bad. Actually, looks like that edge there could be taken down a little bit. Not sure why that is, because this one's fitting perfect. So just have a play around with that. Needs a little bit of attention. Now, something I worked out the second time around doing this is it's better to super glue these into place so that they're nice and firm, then silicone it. And yeah, it makes things a whole lot easier. Now this only holds it in place till the silicone dries. Sure, I'll end up with this on my fingers. Always do. Now I'm pretty happy where that's all sitting. Just sit these in for a quick test run. Make sure I'm happy with it. Doesn't matter if it's a bit gappy. Just do your best and silicone the rest. Now this might be a little bit hard to film and do at the same time, but I'll see how I go. It's a little bit tricky getting in there, but make sure you got plenty of rags around so you can clean up your mess. Now that's the end result. As you can imagine, it was a little bit hard to film and do the job at the same time, but they come out alright. Now you could let them dry off a little bit, but I'm just going to go ahead and poke these pieces in and silicone them up. Now I just want to make sure that it doesn't foul that little spinny thing in the bottom. I'll leave enough room on this edge just to get a bead of silicone across there. It's not too bad. Could probably even give it a little bit of a bend if you wanted, but it seems to work alright. Alright, we'll silicone this one up. So that is the end result. Obviously it still needs to dry, but leaves it with about a 50 by 50 square in the bottom, and it really does not leave much product behind. Works an absolute treat. I'll leave this for a good day or so to dry, but until then I'll get my old jigger out and show you what it's all about. that's it, that's all that's left. There we have it. The lawn wasn't in desperate need of a feed. However, it would have been a shame to not show you the final finished working product. It was only sort of a couple of weeks out really. Might as well do the front one as well while I'm at it. Keep everything in sync. And yeah, I reckon it's a good mod. Worth the, what do you say? Maybe an hour's work, I guess. And yeah, just leave it overnight and it'll be good to go in the next day or so. Finishing touch. So Dan can remember us every time he spreads his fertiliser. So there we have it. Came up an absolute treat, but I won't be the final judge of that. Hope you like it, Dan, and I look forward to hearing what you think of it. And everyone else for that matter. What do you think? Worth the while? Waste the time? Up to you. I'm interested to hear. For me, it's a win. I like it. If you liked the video, please feel free to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers, legends.